Hello, and welcome to Outdoorsy, the podcast that is redefining what the word means itself and reclaiming the outdoorsy identity for everyone. I'm your host, Madeline. Today is a bonus episode. I would go so far to call this an emergency episode. I am going to talk about what is happening in terms of the threat to our public lands here in the United States, why it matters, what's going on, answering all of the questions that you have, and also telling you exactly what you can do about it right now. We have 2 weeks to make an impact, so that's why I am getting this episode out as soon as I possibly can. Normally, this podcast is a little bit different styled. If you go back and listen to other episodes, usually I like to have on somebody from the outdoorsy space to talk about what being outdoorsy means to them, what it looks like to them, really just uplifting the voices of everyone and making sure that you all know that the outdoors are for everybody. So, usually we're talking about something a little bit more fun, a little bit more uplifting, and a little bit more inspiring. But our current environment has dictated that we need to talk about some of this other stuff. I've never shied away from talking about the threats facing our public lands or the threats that our government has posed to our public lands and our natural areas. Before, I've talked about it plenty. I mean, my podcast by nature is extremely political. Everybody's existence right now in outdoorsy spaces is inherently political. So it makes sense that we would talk about this today on the podcast. So, in this emergency bonus episode, I really want to talk about what is going on right now. Again, I mentioned there is a 2 week window we have right now to make some serious change. So, if you're listening to this and you're like, Madeline, what the hell are you talking about? I had no idea that there was anything going on. Don't you worry. I am going to dive into all of that more in depth. But the quick and short of it is that in this reconciliation bill, you might hear it called the budget bill. You might hear it called HR1. You might also hear it called the Big Beautiful Bill. It has a lot of different names, but basically it is the Senate's reconciliation budget package. There is a proposed amendment that has been put on the table that would essentially make 3.3 million acres of public land immediately available for sale. Now, there's another number floating around. People are saying 250 million acres of land are vulnerable. This is partially true. There's a little bit of nuance here. So, there is 250 million acres of public land that is eligible, available, and vulnerable to be part of this 3.3 million acres. So, the mandate is for 3.3 million acres. Not that that makes it any better. It's still terrible. It should not be happening. But I did just want to provide that clarification up front. So, regardless, it will authorize the sale of millions of acres of federal public land. Now, specifically, this land is critical. Bureau of Land Management, you might see this abbreviated as BLM, and U.S. Forest Service territory that supports your favorite hunting, fishing, off roading, hiking, camping, and just outdoor recreation areas. On top of that, they are important for wildlife habitats and biodiversity. Essentially, this amendment has been added to this bill. All this bill has to do in order to pass is to get enough votes in the Senate. So, if you've been following this bill, it has already been passed in the House and now it's on the Senate floor up for negotiations where they are talking about these different amendments. And then they will be doing a vote on if this is going to pass or not in the next 2 weeks. I want to be really, really clear. Right now, the House and the Senate both have majority Republican, and that means that this bill is likely to pass in the Senate as well. I'm not saying it's not impossible for us to stop this bill from passing. I think that there's always a chance, but I think we need to prepare ourselves for the reality that this bill will be passed. So, our ask is of our senators to advocate for the removal of this amendment. We want to remove the amendment that puts 3.3 million acres of public land up for sale from this bill before it goes into law. The good news here is that we've done this before and we won. So, when the House was considering this legislation, an earlier amendment had proposed selling off 500,000 acres of public land. We spoke up, everybody was extremely vocal, outraged, called their representatives. We made noise, we made a ruckus about it, and they removed that amendment from the bill before it passed in the House. So, this is proof that we can do this again. And it's so much more, it's so much more public land now being proposed to be put up on the chopping block. So, it's 10 times as critically important for us to continue to advocate, lift up our voices. Every single action that you can take matters. We have seen this work before. We can do it again. So I'm going to talk about what is really happening in this bill and get into the nitty-gritty details of it if you want to keep listening. But if you're like, no, Madeline, I'm listening to this episode because I just want to know what I can do to help, let me just share that with you first, because this is the most important thing to take away from this episode. The immediate call to action I have for you is in the next 2 weeks. Call your senators. It's so important. That is the number one most directly impactful thing that you can do is to contact your senators directly. Even if you are looking at the proposed land use map and there's no land in your state that is potentially vulnerable, still call your senator because they are still going to be voting on this bill. They also are still going to be in conversations with their peers who live in other states. So even if you're like, oh, this doesn't really directly impact me, please, please, please still call your senators. It is so important because it puts the pressure on them to talk to their peers, puts the pressure on them to vote the right way. Every single voice matters, even if you are not living in a state that would be very impacted by this passing. If you don't want to call your senators, I totally get it. You can also email them. I have a link to a really easy email form that the Outdoor Alliance put together in the description of this show. And I've also shared it a bunch on social media. It's linked in my bio on all my social media platforms. Easy, easy, easy. Takes 10 seconds. The next thing I would say is talk to the people in your community, like not just online. Talk to people in real life, over dinner, at your local trailhead. Like, whatever it might be, have real conversations with people. Pull up the land use map and be like, hey, I know that you guys just went camping in this area last weekend. Did you know that this might not exist anymore if it's put up for sale? Share those types of real stories that people can latch onto emotionally and connect with to realize, like, oh shit, this actually will impact me. Just having those real life conversations are so impactful. The next thing you can do is posting about this online. Rather, it can be you posting your own stuff that you create online, sharing your own stories about why public lands are important to you, or it can just be resharing what other people have posted. It can be commenting support on other people's posts. Anything helps right now when we are just trying to spread awareness and to get as many people dialing and emailing as possible. Any amount of extra visibility helps amplify the urgency of this issue. So, if your senator already opposes this bill, I would also still encourage you to contact them anyways. Let them know that they have a obligation to accurately represent their constituents' wants, desires, and needs. Your expectation of them is that they will lead in a way that you think is representative of the people that they are supposed to represent. Even if they don't agree with you, even if they already are supporting this bill, still call. Again, I have the link to the email form that you can fill out in everywhere in my bio in the description. I also have a link to the website called Five Calls. They have a website and a app that are super easy to use with call scripts. It has exactly who you need to call, has all the information you could possibly need, really easily available and easy to access. So, Five Calls, use the form on Outdoor Alliance, talk to people in real life, post about this online, help boost this message out as urgently as possible. And those are all of the main big things that you can do. I've seen a lot of people get more creative and have a lot of other ideas on how they can help with this issue. I encourage you to pursue those, but those are just kind of like the main basic things that you can do. So let's talk about what's actually happening. What is this land sell off? What is the budget reconciliation bill? Like, what are we talking about here? I'm going to dive more deeply into exactly what is happening, what is being proposed. So, in a last minute move, Senator Mike Lee of Utah introduced an amendment into the Senate's budget reconciliation package. This is an unofficially nicknamed bill called the One Big Beautiful Bill. And this amendment would require the Department of the Interior to sell off 3.3 million acres of federal public land, specifically BLM land and USFS land, framing these lands as a quote, excess, despite no agency having deemed that they are an excess. So basically, what this amendment does is it mandates that the Department of the Interior identify and sell 3.3 million acres of this quote unquote unnecessary federal land. They have a proposed map of 250 million acres of land that is eligible to be used towards this sale. So there is a lot of confusion around like what the different numbers are that are floating around online. There's 250 million acres of land that are available for them to use. And specifically, when I say use, I mean sell. So that's really important to remember. Both numbers are horrible, but just keep in mind, they're not going to, it does not mean that they're going to sell 250 million acres of public land. It just means 3.3 of the 250 acres of land. This amendment also does not provide any clear criteria for what qualifies as, quote, unnecessary or unneeded or wasteful. It bypasses environmental reviews, it sidesteps tribal consultation, and ignores public input. You will see from adversaries talk about how, oh no, there are protections and there are guidelines in the bill itself. There's not. Basically, what this does is it opens up these critical protected BLM and Forest Service lands for development, permanently removing them from public access. Once these lands are sold, they're gone forever. These lands often include your favorite recreation areas, wildlife migration corridors, indigenous ancestral territory, grazing lands, high desert ecosystems, your favorite hiking trails, hunting areas, off roading trails, like basically all of these areas that we love to recreate in, and places that are untouched, protected wild areas that are so critical to our biodiversity and our ecosystems. There's no guarantee that once these lands are sold, they will remain accessible to the public or protected from exploitation, such as mining, drilling, and other extractive uses. Mike Lee has spent years pushing anti public lands agendas. He has attempted to transfer federal lands to the states. He has opposed national monument designations. He has supported fossil fuel leases over environmental protections. Him and all of his friends argue that the government just owns too much land in the West, but their real goal here is to strip public oversight and hand the land over to the private industry, their corporate developers, and their billionaire buddies to do whatever they want with it for profit. The reason why this is so dangerous is because our land is going to be lost to development forever. It's going to threaten ecosystems and climate with zero environmental oversight. It's going to violate indigenous rights and desires because there's not going to be any tribal consultation. It's going to silence local communities because they're not seeking public hearings, public input, or anything like that. And above all, it sets this precedent. So you've heard me time and time again during this episode talk about like, okay, well, it's, quote unquote, only 3.3 million acres. It's not the 250 million acres. But who's to say it won't be that eventually? If they can get away with this, what else can they get away with? It sets a really dangerous precedent. I'm very concerned that if this amendment passes, it will just be majority rules. Here we go. We're doing it. It's been fast tracked, and there's not been enough consideration, negotiation, or review of this bill to really understand the consequences of it at all. So we can't let this happen. Now, again, the majority of this episode, I've wanted to talk about this immediate threat that we're facing, right, with this budget reconciliation bill. This is not the only threat that is facing our public lands right now. This is part of a much broader campaign to completely dismantle public land protections across the country. We've seen mass layoffs at the National Park Service, the Forest Service, BLM, Fish and Wildlife. We have seen insane censorship of climate, DEI, Indigenous history, and public land education from documentation, both physical and digital. There's been rollbacks on national monument protections. There's been increased desire for extraction and pipeline construction. Like the threats never stop. This is going to be an ongoing battle. It's been a battle for a very long time. It's going to continue to be so. But this right now, this is the biggest potential sell off we have ever seen in the history of our country. And it is so dangerous. We cannot let it happen. Public lands belong to all of us. They have no right to sell them off. Whether you have summited mountains or you simply like to go for little picnics in the park, public lands affect all of us. Even if you don't live in the areas or near the areas or even recreate in the areas that would be impacted by the sell off, it will impact you. Trust me. We cannot let this happen. We have got them to remove an amendment that put public lands up for sale before. We can do it again. We have 2 weeks. Make some calls. If you are too afraid to make a call to your senator, trust me, I hate making phone calls. It is my least favorite thing in the entire world. I have a YouTube video actually where I literally show you exactly what happens when you call your senators through 5 calls. Go watch that because I guarantee you it will make you feel better. 9 times out of 10, you're going to hit a voicemail inbox and you can just leave a message. Use the script that 5 calls gives you. It is so easy. Like it could not be easier. It takes 5 minutes tops. I know it's scary, but I am begging you all to be brave with me. Be brave, use your voice, even if you think that your senator can't possibly change their mind or there's nothing that you can do or say to make an impact. Promise you, there is something you can do. Every voice has value, every voice can make an impact. I am begging you. Let's not let this happen. Let's keep making noise about this. Let's keep public lands in public hands and let's give them hell. Let's go make some good trouble. Let's go make a difference. Be brave with me. We got this. We can do it. I believe in us. Thank you so much for listening to this bonus episode of Outdoorsy. I hope to be coming back relatively soon with more regularly scheduled episodes. I appreciate your patience so much, and thank you all so much for continuing to fight for public lands. Every voice matters. And just remember, you belong out there. The outdoors are for everyone.